Well, after a very long yesterday of watching a lot of sports ball, if you will, um,
Yep.
and many commercials and everything else
Mostly
that,
terrible, right? Although, isn't it notable? I will say that the couple of best commercials were almost certainly all tech related, right?
yeah,
The Microsoft one, which is incredible, the accessibility commercial. The Amazon Alexa one with Harrison Ford, where he's like, "We're not talking anymore."
hmm
The dog who ordered all the food, I thought was excellent. And was there another one? Was there another? I thought there was like a third. I can't remember now. But the ads were like mostly pretty terrible. But it's interesting to me that those ones were actually pretty good.
yeah. But after suffering through all of that, I would like to congratulate Ricky Fowler on winning the Waste Management Open yesterday because that is the only sports related activity yesterday that mattered, and everything
Whoa, whoa,
else
whoa,
is
whoa, 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 whoa! I'm sorry. You're telling me that the Patriots are winning one out of every three championships in an 18-year span, during which the league has been artificially engineered for parity, where a different team should have won every year, except for once or twice. The truly talented teams would have been twice. You're telling me
that
that
game was
wasn't the most
horrific.
amazing thing that happened?
That
The
game
game was, well, horrific. You mean like from an offensive standpoint?
from an
So in other
entertainment
words, you're saying
perspective.
that like the two incredible defenses that stopped the other teams from scoring for three-quarters of the game was
More
not
than that is
impressive.
almost four quarters. What they made it down to
Okay,
like
but
9 minutes left in the fourth quarter or
yeah, I
something
mean it
like
was,
that.
but from the perspective of someone who cares about which team wins, right? It was a nail biter, which is not what I wanted. I want to be clear.
Yeah.
I want to be really clear about that. But it was a hard fought game, right?
Oh, it
I
was a
realize that from
defensive
an entertainment
grind.
perspective. Yeah, I know. Like you want to see like a 54-48 type game, but
Yep.
that's actually really bad football.
Oh, it is. But
You know,
yeah.
that's all.
Yep. Yeah. So, anyways, um,
Yes, yes. Please denigrate my team further. What else? What other artificial complaint can we come up about with the Patriots?
this wasn't maybe Brady's best game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But the Pats have a long history of throwing up a turd in the Super Bowl. So it is astonishing. I said before the game, could he just have one in his career where it's just a straight up blowout? And no, the answer is no. No, he can't.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of a blowout there at the end. Maybe. I mean,
No.
in that game, being up one touchdown is a blowout.
Well, someone observed this, and it's correct. I mean, and I made fun of this during the game. Like, it's an interesting thing when kicks are the most
Oh yeah.
interesting part of the game, and the poor guys have to announce these games, and they're terrible in their own rights, but like having to make it seem interesting,
I actually like
'cause
Tony Romo as an announcer. Now, granted, that game was
so
that
I-
game was not. You couldn't critique the judges on that game because it's like, oh great, here they went three and out again. Here comes a punt.
I do too, and I would say in the history of like former football players who step in front of a mic, and most of them are unintelligible. He is intelligent and well spoken, but there's also this Romo thing going on now that I think is a little overblown, and it seeped into the Super Bowl last night, which is like, tell me Romo's a seer. He can predict everything. He's always right. And they kept mentioning it like during the game, and it's like, guys, get over yourself. Like he had nothing intelligent to offer in that game at all. Like I at all. In fact, I started counting down the times because he would say, because now it's like everything he does is right, right? So he's like, all right, well, the Pats are going to have to go wide and long on this one, and they run it up the middle. And then he's like, all right, so they're going to have to do this on this one. It's like, no, they don't. And it's just like, my point isn't that he's terrible. My point is that he is well spoken and he is a good announcer, but they've overblown his perfect, predictable thing. It's not really there. I think the thing that's most interesting about him is that he is much more well spoken than most former players. Like Steve Young is very good. You have to watch ESPN if you want to see that guy. And there are a couple of others, but most of them are just kind of gravel-mouthed idiots. I mean,
Well, Tony Romo's number one defining feature is that he's not Joe Buck. I mean, that's
oh, listen, you and I are like simpatico on a lot of stuff. There is nothing we will agree on more than that man needs to be gone.
well. The worst part is
The worst part is he's everywhere.
he right.
If you
he-
turn on
he
like a Fox
announces
Sports, he announces swimming, gymnastics.
golf.
He's over at the Olympics. You
He
can't.
does like
I'll
the
be
Open
sitting there,
Championship
yes.
every year, and
I'm
it's
like
the
clicking
Open or the
around.
Players
It's
or whatever.
the middle
Ugh.
of the summer, and I'm like click on the remote, and I hear this voice, and I'm like, I start like twitching, like, what's wrong with me? It's Joe Buck. Yeah, I hate that guy.
Joe Buck should be nowhere near a golf course announcing anything. That is
An Olympic stadium, a baseball field.
Just not golf. Don't do it.
I don't want him anywhere. I cannot stand when I turn to a football game and he's on. And, you know, the Fox and NFL are slightly connected.
A little bit. Speaking of connected things, by the way, good segue. Good segue. So, according to a posting on the GDC website for a schedule, and I think they went live a little early because I think it's now gone. Microsoft is looking to bring Xbox Live to iOS, Android, and the Nintendo Switch, which will be interesting.
I've always wondered why they didn't do that. And I got to think about this for a second. I mean, Apple has their own little game, service, whatever it is, Game Center or whatever it's called on iOS. Google has a Google Play Games, I think it's called. I don't know what Nintendo obviously has some kind of online service, but it seems like if Microsoft wants to go heterogeneous on their Xbox stuff, which they do, this is a necessary step, right? So that you as a subscriber, it's kind of like bringing iOS Office apps to iOS.
Yeah.
You already have this thing. You're in the Microsoft world, and now you can do it on mobile too. And I don't know. It's interesting. Today, what that would look like is pretty limited, right? Because there's probably some small number of Microsoft games, like 1 or 2 on iOS, let's say, that maybe connect back to Xbox Live Achievements. I think there are actually a couple. And just turning the switch isn't going to make that change. They have to have buy-in from game makers, et cetera, et cetera. But in the future, when everything is being pumped out to multiple screens and the service is the whole platform, that's why you need that there. So that makes tons of sense.
Yeah, I think they want to become the backbone of that gaming world, right? It's that way. If you're playing on Xbox and you jump to an iOS game or whatever, you can tie it all in. The question that I have, and we'll see how Microsoft positions this, is how do they convince somebody who's an iOS only game to tie into this platform? Because I can understand, they'd be like, you get a built-in ecosystem with Xbox Live, we make it easier to game.
Yep.
But that's the question. And if they can answer that with a really solid foundation of like, look, you're going to get better monetization, people are going to stay in your game longer, then that is a great pitch. That is the question that I have, that I want to see how Microsoft positions.
Yep. My guess is they will find limited buy-in of that, and that the real point of this is to set the stage for later this year when you can test xCloud and it can run on an iPad, know. And that the real thing is that those games that are coming down from Microsoft over Xbox Live are going to be Xbox Live enabled, obviously. But now you might just play it on your TV, or without an Xbox, you might play it on your mobile device, your Switch, whatever. I bet it's more about that than it is about getting Monument Valley into Xbox Live or something.
Yeah,
you never know.
You never know. We will see. We will. GDC takes place March 18th, I think, something like that. So we've got a little bit of time, but it's not too far off.
Yep.
It's not too far off. And Paul has found, he's harassed me about this 9 times already. Paul has found an email application that he wants me to use.
Well, I should say a reader has found it.
Yes, right? Actually, you're right.
And he, I had written about this email stuff again because you probably saw in the latest build of Windows 10, for the next version, they appear to address, actually, in fact, I just got home, I can test this now, I haven't even looked at it, but they appear to address my single biggest concern with the Windows Mail app, which is the reason I don't use it, because how nice would it be? I think you have used it, certainly. I mean, it's nice not having to go find an app and install it and configure it. Like if you could just bring the thing up and have it just work like you could with that app, there's a huge benefit to that. But the app is kind of crappy, and it doesn't do a bunch of things, but one of the things it doesn't do that's a deal breaker for me is let you set the size of the fonts that you see in the mail, the reading pane. And you can zoom, but it doesn't respect the frame. And what I mean by that is if you zoom into, like pinch to zoom or however else you might zoom, it will actually, it makes everything bigger, but it doesn't, free form into the shape. It goes beyond it, so you have to kind of scroll around, and it's a per message thing. It's not a regular setting. It's so ancient. We literally have had this capability in email apps since the 1990s. That's how old-fashioned that is. Anyway, they're adding it, So I'll look at that. In fact, I'll look at that today now that we're talking about it. But in the course of writing about that, somebody wrote me in on the comments and said, I mentioned this before. I didn't see it, but he said you should check out this third-party email app that's called Postbox, and it's very Mac looking. There are a lot of things you get on the Mac from third-party apps we just don't see on Windows, and this type of thing is actually very common on the Mac side. And it looks like a Mac app. And yes, there is a version for the Mac. So if you use both, that might make it interesting as well. It's a paid app, but it's $40, but it's lifetime, multiple devices, however you want to use it. You can use it on Mac and PC if you want. And I apologize, I've talked so much, but it's a hard thing to explain. But when you think about having multiple email accounts and the various ways in which you can bring them together into a single location. I had been doing this in the past on the server side, meaning I forwarded email from my secondary accounts to a primary account. I set up the primary account to be able to send email from those accounts, right? So everything would come into one place. If I replied to an email, it would reply from the right account, right? And I could start new emails from that account if I wanted to. I barely ever did, but I could. What I found was that I was losing emails because I think because those messages are now dealing with 2 different spam filters, and I think there's some interaction there where messages get lost. And so it occurred to me the better way to do this might be to leave the messages up on the cloud on their own services and do that consolidation on the client. If you use Gmail or Outlook Mobile, you can set them up with multiple accounts. It doesn't change where the email's stored, but it gives you like a single inbox view. Ideally, you could do that on the desktop as well. Windows Mail will do that. And this app will do that, and many other apps too, of course. But there's some benefit to this. It's just that Windows Mail is kind of lousy. So
Right.
it's just it's an interesting choice. I know you said you looked at it and you didn't like the UI, which I completely get. There may be some element of theming that I'm not privy to that you could look into. It does support a dark theme, by the way. So if you're using a dark theme in Windows, you can have it there too. All the UI thing you're worried about or you don't like is just a toolbar,
Right.
So I think there are ways to minimize that. I was so happy to find this over the weekend. I was away. I actually took the time to install it on a laptop I brought, and I used the toolbar. You can have a toolbar with the text or just the icons. I changed it to just the icons. It kind of minimizes it a little bit. It's nice. On the desktop here at home, I have it just the normal way, whatever. But yeah, it doesn't look like any other app for sure. I mean, but it works really well, and there's a lot of really nice customization in there.
Yeah, maybe. The thing that kills me is they don't have an iOS app, though, do they?
No. So, again, in this kind of scheme where you've decided to have, I don't know how many email accounts you manage, but if you have 2 or more, you can keep those emails up in wherever the services are. I have 3 main ones that I use. There are many, many apps on mobile that do this, right? Outlook Mobile is one. That's the one I've chosen. Gmail is one. That works fine. The built-in mail app in iOS does this, of course, right? And so you kind of have your choice there. To me, the bigger issue isn't the mobile thing. Like, it'd be kind of nice to have the same app on both, I guess. But the bigger issue is calendar. So on mobile, for now, I'm still using Google Calendar. I may eventually just move to Outlook, have the one app. It's fine. On the desktop, I think I'm just going to use Windows Calendar, right? Because unlike Mail, it actually looks good and it works well. But when you see the 2 apps like down in the taskbar, I mean, the icons look completely different. The UIs of these apps are completely different.
Yep.
I don't know that they have to be similar. I mean, they are different functions, I guess. But I don't know. If you care about that kind of stuff, I guess it's something to think about.
Yep. The only thing I can add to that is that I messaged some people who might be in the know at Essential, and because they bought Newton Mail.
Oh, yes.
And they gave me the very coy, "We have nothing to announce yet, but stay tuned."
Right. So how long should I hold my breath?
Yeah, I mean, that's
would be the question I would ask,
Right. I mean, they have to do something with it because they bought the company, right? It'd be pretty dumb for them to buy it and be like, yeah, we're just going to do nothing with it.
I guess what we don't know is, were they working on something else, and is that something else the reason they bought them?
Yeah, I hope not. We'll find out.
But here's the good news, I guess. Essential isn't that much bigger of a company, but a company with a little bit more money. I mean, it may, if they're not going to go forward with the Newton Mail, maybe this is their opportunity to give it to someone else or sell it to someone else who will, or, open source it even or something. So there could still be a positive outcome there. It's just so much time's going by, it's
We will find out. We will find out. But we will not have to find out. This is a dramatic reinterpretation of the sky outside currently and how it was over the weekend. It was beautiful. We walked the dog. We played outside. We did stuff, and it's actually currently 55 degrees. And when I get off of here, I'm going to go take the dog around the block when I get my hair cut. And,
Yeah, I'm actually going to go for a walk this afternoon, which is kind of off for me. But yeah, 52 today. It's going to be 54 tomorrow. We were in Philly over the weekend, and I think it was 25 when we left, and we got home, it was 50. It's just kind of one of those things. Like it got considerably
64 degrees here yesterday.
Yeah, it never got that warm here, but it did get up into the 50s, which is really neat.
We actually grilled out. It was nice.
Yeah. Yep.
It was nice. You got anything else for today, Mr. Thrat?
No, I don't know. I continue working on that scanning stuff. That stuff's actually going great. And, I never posted this. I have this great photo. I brought up all the photos. Well, not all of them, but most of them, and put them on a shelf. And so it's kind of like photo albums and in boxes. And there's a shelf that's basically empty now. Like I haven't finished. Some of them are stacked here, but I've developed this like really fast workflow. Like if we're watching TV or something, I'm just sitting around. I'll like actually just rip the photos. It's kind of complicated. You have to open every page and peel them out and stack them, blah, 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 whatever. But I do that. Like I'll do that for 5 or 6 of the albums at a time. And then I can just scan the stacks through and then quickly make sure everything's, metadated up correctly, whatever. But it's going really fast. Like I have to figure out a reason to write about this again, just so I can show these pictures, because the before and after is kind of incredible on just the size of it, so I continue working on that. But, I wrote about this sort of this morning. That Confluence article, if you saw it, is really about the kind of back and forth nature of what happens. Because I think a lot of websites, it's like some guy opining from on high, like here is my wisdom for the world, and I don't really see myself as that kind of person, but I like the back and forth stuff. And that app that I recommended on the mail, or the high-speed scanner that we're talking about now, are good examples of very recent recommendations from readers. And it's really nice to be able to receive, that kind of good advice. And it's kind of a nice two-way conversation, right, rather than a one-way deal. So it's cool. I like it. It's a nice part of what we do.
Well, good.
Anyway, how about you, Brad? Sorry.
I don't know. I'm going to go outside, get some fresh air before the rains come, because it's going to be raining apparently for the next 3 days. Yeah. Which will get rid of all the salt on the road, I guess, or something.
And the snow, too. We still have snow all over the place. I'm thinking today, tomorrow, maybe that will do it.
Yeah. That's about it, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
All right, everybody. That wraps it up for today. We should be back all week. You can check us out right where you're watching us right now. Have yourselves a wonderful Monday.